This is how to crochet a bunny. All you need is a size I or 5.5 millimeter hook, 5 bulky weight yarn, and 10 or 12 millimeter eyes. And of course stuffing. Other than that, I also used a stitch marker and a row counter, and each row is going to get its own video, so check the comments for part 1. This is how to crochet a bunny part 1. We're on row 1. I already made my slip knot, and now we're going to chain 2. And then we're going to work 6 single crochet into the very first chain. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Part 2 for row 2 is going to be tagged in the comments, so I'll see you there. This is how to crochet a bunny part 2. We're on row 2 and we're working in a continuous round or a spiral, so we're just going to work directly into that first stitch. After that first stitch, I'm going to add my stitch marker and click my row clicker, and that's how I keep track of my rows and my stitches. So I'm going to add a second stitch into the same stitch, and then I'm going to put 2 single crochet into every single stitch all the way around until I have 12 single crochet for round 2. So that was 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. And I'll see you in part 3 for row 3. Be sure to like and follow. This is how to crochet a bunny part 3. We're on row 3 and we're going to keep going the way we did in row 2 with a continuous spiral. So we're going to add the first stitch of row 3 on top of the first stitch of row 2. Then I'm going to move my stitch marker to mark the beginning of my row. And then I'm going to click my clicker so that I know what row I'm on. Then I'm going to add a second stitch into the same stitch and put the third one into the next by itself. So 1, 2 are together in the same stitch, and then 3 is by itself. 1, 2 is together, and 3 is by itself. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, and the last one, 1, 2, 3. Part 4 is going to be in the comments, and be sure to like and follow. This is how to crochet a bunny part 4. We're on row 4, and we're going to keep going with our spiral just like we did for rows 2 and 3 by adding the first stitch of row 4 on top of the first stitch of row 3. And then I'm going to move my stitch marker and click my row clicker. Then I'm going to add 1 single crochet into every single stitch all the way around until I get back to my stitch marker. At the end of this row, I should have 18 stitches. The stitch marker, in case you're wondering, helps me keep track of the first stitch of every single row so that I know when to increase, when to no longer increase. And then the row clicker helps me keep track of what row I'm on. In the beginning, it's not that big of a deal, but once you get to row 8, 9, 10, or if you're working on a larger project that you have to put down, a row clicker can really help you stay on top of what you're doing, so you don't have to constantly go back and count every single row. Part 5 is going to be in the comments, and be sure to like and follow. This is how to crochet a bunny part 5. We're on row 5, and we're going to keep working in our spiral. So I'm going to add my first stitch of row 5 on top of the first stitch of row 4, move my stitch marker and click my clicker so I know where my row begins and what row I'm on. Then I'm going to add a second single crochet into the same stitch and then 1 single crochet into the next 2 stitches. So 1, 2 are in the same stitch, and then 3, 4 are on their own. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. I count like this because it helps me keep track of my stitches. As long as my row ends on a 4, I know that I didn't skip any increase stitches. And 1 and 2 are always my increases. That's why I increase at the beginning of a set. But that's it for part 5. Part 6 for row 6 is going to be in the comments. And be sure to like and follow if you enjoy these kind of close-up stitch tutorials. Happy hooking! This is How to Crochet a Bunny part 6. We're on row 6 and we're still working in a spiral, so I'm going to add my first stitch for row 6 on top of the first stitch of row 5. Then I'm moving my stitch marker over, clicking my row clicker, and then I'm going to put 1 single crochet into every single stitch until I get back to my stitch marker. If this is the first video you see, the stitch marker helps me keep track of the first stitch of every single row, and the row clicker helps me keep track of what row I'm on. And that lets me know if I need to increase or decrease stitches in order to get the design I'm looking for. After this row, we have 1 more row of increases before we get to the halfway point. But if you enjoy these kind of close-up stitch tutorials, be sure to like and follow. I post them every single day on my page. And if you have any questions about this bunny or another project you're working on, or you would like to request something, you can leave that in the comments of any of my videos. And if I can't respond to your question in words, I will make a video response. And I think that's it. See you in part 7. Happy hooking! This is How to Crochet a Bunny part 7. We're on row 7 and we're still working in a spiral, so the first stitch of row 7 is going to go on top of the first stitch of row 6. I'm going to move my stitch marker and click my clicker and add a second stitch into the same as the first stitch. Then I'm going to put 1 single crochet into the next 3 stitches. I like to count 1 and 2 into the same stitch, and then 3, 4, 5 on their own, and again 1, 2 into the same stitch, 3, 4, and 5 on their own. That's how I count whenever I'm working projects like this. And as long as my last stitch is stitch number 5, I know that I didn't skip any increase stitches and my count is correct. In this case, there's really no need to count the exact number of stitches going around because it's really uncommon to skip more than 1 or 2 stitches. And the only way that this counting would fail me is if I magically skipped 5 stitches or more. But that's it for part 7. Part 8 is going to be in the comments. This is How to Crochet a Bunny part 8. We're on row 8, and for this row, we're putting a single crochet into each single crochet around, and we should have 30 stitches for this round, and we're going to repeat that for rows 9 through 12. Someone in my live this morning recommended that I put the stitch count into every single row, and then we decided it would be even better to put the written pattern instructions, or as they would be written in a pattern, so that you can start getting used to reading patterns, seeing how they're translated into actions, and then maybe you'll be able to feel more comfortable to start your own pattern. And I mean both in design and actually reading someone else's pattern. All of these rows are crocheted, but I put row 8 at double time, and I put rows 9, 10, 11, and 12 at 3x speed. Something about this is very speedy to me. I don't know, it looks like a machine almost. But I don't know what to say for another 2 minutes. So you can go to the comments for part 9. I'll try to get it up a little bit faster than I have this part. But it's Sunday, and we had a family day today. It was so nice. The weather was perfect. The kids didn't stop laughing. They had a really good day. So while I feel bad for taking this long to get this part up, I'm grateful for days like today. We even had a race in the backyard where my 5-year-old, who's in baseball, he's trying to, We're trying to get him to sprint a little bit faster, or we're practicing sprinting, but we made a game out of it today where he was racing Daddy, and then he was racing Mommy, and then of course our 2-year-old wanted to participate, so that was fun. Then they also got to spend some time with their grandparents, which they haven't been able to in a while, which was nice. But that's it for part 9. That's it for part 8. Part 9 is going to be in the comments. If you enjoy these kind of close-up stitch tutorials, be sure to like and follow. I post them every single day on my page. If you have any questions about this stitch, or if you have any constructional criticism, emphasis on the constructional, I will gladly take it. But happy hooking! This is How to Crochet a Bunny, part 9. We're on row 13, and for this row, we're going to add a decrease into the first stitch. So I'm going to take my stitch marker out, and I'm going to pick up the front loop from the first stitch, and then I'm going to pick up the front loop from the second stitch. Then I'm going to yarn over and pull through both of those front loops, and then I'm going to yarn over and pull through 2. This is a new way that I've learned to do the decrease stitches, but for the next 3 single crochet, I'm just going to put 1 into each one, and then I'm going to repeat that all the way around. Doing a decrease stitch with just the front loops and without pulling up a loop is also how someone told me on one of my live videos, and it is mind-boggling to me just how amazing it is. I genuinely wish I had written down her username so I could credit her with it, because chef's kiss. Mwah! But really now, it looks like the stitch is just a regular single crochet. There's no bump. There's nothing really. It's perfect to me. I'm going to try it out with regular yarn to see just how different it looks. Because with chunky yarn, it's a little hard to tell anyway because it's so chunky. But here on the pattern notes where it says decrease, DEC, and then single crochet in 3 in parentheses, anything that's in a pattern that's written in parentheses gets repeated however many times it says following the parentheses. So here it says decrease and then single crochet in 3 around. That means you're going to repeat that all the way around until you get back to the stitch marker. The 24 at the end of that means that at the end of this row, you should have 24 stitches in your row. I'm going to put part 10 in the comments. And if you enjoyed this close-up stitch tutorial, be sure to like and follow. I post them every single day on my page. And if you have any questions, you can leave them in the comments of any of my videos. This is How to Crochet a Bunny, part 10. We're not yet moving on to row 14, but we are placing the eyes. So the eyes are going to be between rows 7 and 8 and 4 stitches apart. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Then I'll put the safety eye underneath. And then I'll take my other safety eye and count 4 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I check the placement. I like it, so now I'm going to add the washers to secure them. But I'm going to make this next part really, really clear. Safety eyes are not safe. They are still a choking hazard for any children under the age of 3. That doesn't mean you can't use them. It simply means that you need to let people know that it's a choking hazard and that they cannot leave any child unattended with a stuffy. Especially if the baby's teething, those gums can pop that washer off like it's nothing, and choking is a silent killer. If you're not there when it happens and you don't know what to look for, you may not even know that they're choking on the eyeball. As a maker, it is absolutely your responsibility to let people know so that they can make a decision that works for them and their family. Just please don't lie to make a sale. This is How to Crochet a Bunny, part 11. We're on row 14, and we're going to add a decrease into that first one. So we're going to move the stitch marker, pick up the front loop of the first stitch, the front loop of the second stitch, yarn over, pull through both front loops, yarn over, pull through 2. I know that was fast, but that's how fast I go. Then I'm going to put a single crochet into the next, and then a single crochet into the second, and then I'm going to decrease again and put a single crochet into the next 2 stitches, and then decrease again, all the way until the end of the stitch marker. All the way until the end, until I get to the stitch marker. English. After this row, I'm going to add a little bit more stuffing, but I don't think I'm filming that. So part 12 is in the comments with row 15. If you do want me to slow down, I can. I'm just trying to be mindful of everybody's time. I know that not everybody's watching these videos to the very end. At least I don't think they are. I wouldn't. But if you are, hello. There's nothing else happening in this video. Except that I am getting a little bit more confident to let my weirdness out. I just like that on this app, I identify more with people that are themselves instead of the refined version. And I'm pretty sure it's going to bother somebody, but you can go to someone else to look for crochet tutorials if my weirdness bothers you, because I am by myself all the time. Because I'm socially awkward and don't know how to talk when I'm around other humans. Unless they're tiny. Tiny humans like me. I don't know why. Oh, I am filming how to stuff it somewhere. The main thing is to just make sure you leave the row you're working with free of stuffing so that you don't pull the stuffing through the stitches, and I'll see you in part 12. This is how to crochet a bunny part 12. We are on row 15 and our first stitch is going to be another decrease. So pick up the front loop of the first stitch, pick up the front loop of the second stitch, yarn over, pull through both loops, yarn over, pull through two, put the stitch marker back and click the clicker for row 15, and then we're going to put one single crochet into the next, and then we're going to repeat that all the way around. So it's going to be a decrease, and then a regular single crochet, and a decrease, and a regular single crochet, all the way around. For this row, you should have 12 stitches, and then row 16 is going to be our last row, and I think you can already guess how that one's going to go. So if you want to move on to part 13 for row 16, it'll be in the comments. And after that, we're going to do the nose, and then we're going to do the ears. And I know the ears are the one everyone's excited about, but I'll try to get them up today. If not, I'll get them up first thing tomorrow. Hopefully. This tutorial has a lot more parts than I thought it would, and I'm kind of glad I split it up because I definitely learned from my amigurumi ball tutorial, because that one, I think my brain was fried after trying to post all those videos in one sitting. I know it can be a little frustrating if you're not making the videos and you're having to wait, and I feel bad about that, but it's hard. But when I'm stuffing the ball, I use my thumb and just kind of poke it in there, and I use a little bit at a time, and it's less every single time, and I'm looking for soft spots, I guess. I don't want the bunny to be super firm. So if you watch the amigurumi ball tutorial, I stuffed it from the inside out and would push it out toward the edge because I wanted my ball to be firm. For this, I want there to be a little bit of softness to it, so I'm just trying to gently feel how much more I can fit in there without overstuffing it and making it even. And I always like to use the same finger, in this case my right thumb, because I'll start to feel what the proper stiffness is, I guess. And if I were to use different fingers, it would feel different for each finger. But this is honestly where I try to finish as much of the stuffing as I can, because after row 16, there's just going to be a little tiny hole. I can do a little bit more shaping then, but I'm not going to be able to stuff a lot into it evenly. But that's it for part 12, and I'll see you in part 13. I can't count. Part 13. I'm gonna go make a coffee now. This is how to crochet a bunny part 13. We are on row 16, and for this row we are going to decrease every single stitch, and we're going to go from 12 stitches to 6 stitches. I am still using my stitch marker just to make sure that I don't over decrease, because if you over decrease, it creates a weird little bump when you're sewing it shut. Plus, this way, by having 6 stitches at the end, we'll have 6 stitches at the beginning and 6 stitches at the end, and it just evens out. After the decreases, I'm going to add a little bit more stuffing to make sure that the bottom is as firm as the top. And as long as you make sure that it's all the way around the inside, is even, if you leave a little bit of a gap in the very center, it'll actually help your bunny sit up straight without having to lean onto anything. A common issue with things tipping over is when you overstuff the very center of it, and then it'll create a little bit of a round on the bottom, and it can't sit still that way. But if you leave it a little bit empty, just a little bit, and leave the outside of it firm, then it'll stand up straight, kind of like an upside down cereal bowl, if that makes sense. But the way that I make sure I don't overstuff or understuff is when I'm going around with my fingers and I'm squishing it to see the level of squishiness. So if it's more squishy on one side than the other, then I'll add a little bit more stuffing or move it around. And if it's firm and equally firm all the way around, then I'll call it a day. But the key is really just to add a tiny bit at a time, because it's easy to add stuffing. Once you start taking away stuffing and moving it around, it gets a little bit more lumpy. But I will see you in part 14. This is How to Crochet a Bunny part 14. We are done with the head, essentially. We're just going to pull the yarn through, take the stitch marker out, and then I'm going to attach my yarn needle and sew the hole shut. My yarn needle is a blunt bent tapestry needle, and I like to pick up the front loop only, just like I did for the decreases, and work from the inside out for every single stitch. And then once I've woven my needle and the yarn through every single stitch, I will pull it tight and it'll create an invisible close, meaning someone who doesn't know how to crochet isn't going to be able to tell where exactly the bottom is, beside that it's absolutely in the center. Then I just poke it into the center of the hole and out at any point in the bunny. The yarn's not going to unravel through the stuffing. So instead of weaving in ends, which I hate, I just do it that way. Then I cut it off and we're ready to attach the nose in part 15. It'll be linked in the comments. This is How to Crochet a Bunny part 15. For this next part, we're just going to add the nose. I am using regular cotton yarn and I double stranded it onto my bent blunt tapestry needle. And for the first one, I'm just going to work around one stitch in between the eyeballs, and I'm going to weave it in between the threads below the knot to secure it. Then I'll use a smaller crochet hook to get the knot behind the nose inside of the head. And then I use the back end of my hook to punch it into the bunny. The bunny's obviously enjoying this very much with this angry expression, but we'll work on that. Next, we're going to work around it, so I'm picking up a little bit more than just the one stitch. You don't have to just work within the confines of the gaps between the stitches. You can absolutely go in between stitches or through the stitches themselves, however you need to, in order to get the distance you want. For the next one, I'm feeding it underneath, so I'm centering it on my pink line, and then I'm going to go underneath to poke the needle through. This is why I like to use bent needles. It makes it a lot easier. And I'm just going to repeat that process a couple times. It's hard to explain in words, but I hope the video makes a little bit more sense. I'm going to do this about 3 times. That's what I found works for me for the size. You can make your nose as big or as small as you want to. This is just how I do it. And this is not how I did it in the beginning. In the beginning, my noses were a lot bigger. But, I don't know, it's the easiest one for me. For this last one, I'm pretty sure this is the last one, I am going to just poke it through the head and out at any point in the bunny. And I'm gently tugging on the strings to make them line up all the way. And sometimes I like to place them like this so that I can pull a little bit faster and just shape it a little bit more. And because I hate weaving in my ends, You may have gotten that by now. I'm just going to cut it off and use the back of my crochet hook again to poke it in to make sure it doesn't poke out. So poke, poke, poke. There we go. Part 16 will be in the comments. This is how to crochet a bunny, part 16. For this, we are going to crochet the ears. So I'm going to start with 2 chains, and then I'm going to put 6 single crochet into the very first chain. This is the same thing we did when we started the head. From there, I'm going to repeat this row and put 1 single crochet into every stitch across. It'll be a little bit difficult to work in, but that's what gives you the nice little tip on the ear. So I'm not using a stitch marker right now, but you can absolutely if you want to. Usually if the stitches are less than 10, I don't use a stitch marker because I can just count. That one's 3, 4, 5, 6, and then for row 3, I am going to put 2 single crochet into every single stitch across. But here I'm going to start using a stitch marker. So 1, and there goes the stitch marker. 2, into the same. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, oh, wrong one. There it is. 9, 10, 11, 12. And then I am just gonna turn it inside out and work on row 4. Now for rows 4 through 11, I'm going to put 1 single crochet into every single stitch around for a total of 12 single crochet per round. And if you'd like longer ears, you can absolutely do that. This is just my preferred length, and it's at 3x speed in order to fit the ears into one video. In part 17, we'll go over how to sew the ears so that they look like little bunny ears. Or I guess rabbit ears, because bunny ears are fluffy, I thought. But whatever. Yeah, so I'll see you in part 17 on how to sew them onto the head. And make sure that if you enjoy this tutorial, to like and follow. I post them every single day on my page. I've been getting a lot of requests lately too, so there's a lot of good stuff coming. But I'll see you in part 17. This is how to crochet a bunny, part 17, and we're finally adding the ears. So I like to fold them in half so that the last stitch is on one side. And then I'm going to fold them in half again like this to get the inside of my ear. Then I like to feed my yarn through the bottom out so that I can keep that look. But that's all the sewing I'm going to do to keep the ear together like this. The next step is to place it on top of the ear where I want it. So I like mine kind of close together toward the top. Once I like the placement, I just take my needle and I look where the yarn is coming out of, and I go straight down into the main body and then back out where I think the next stitch is going to go. Now that doesn't mean that the next stitch has to go there, it's just the general direction. So in this case, I'm working clockwise. Then I'm going to work through my next stitch on the ear from the inside out again, and that's going to be the biggest thing to make it seamless, is to work through every single stitch on the ear from the inside out, and that's going to make it look like an actual stitch and not so much, I don't know, you just can't see it that well. And then by lining up the yarn where it comes out of and going directly into the head, you're hiding that seam even more. The other key thing is to not care where it goes into in the main body. So it can go in between stitches, it can go through stitches, it can go in between rows. It doesn't really matter, because as long as it's going into the main body and out of the main body in a different location, it's going to be secure. these are just some tips and tricks that I figured out over time. There have been a lot of stuffed animals that I've made in the past where you can see exactly where the arm or leg attaches to the body, and that was always one of my pet peeves. By working from the inside of the limb to the outside and then into the body has been the only way that I like it. But essentially I'm going to do that all the way around, and I check the placement after every single stitch to make sure I still like it, and then that's it. I really hope you enjoyed this series. I can't believe it was 17 parts, but I hope it was of value to someone. I know I've been getting comments that have been very, very sweet, and I appreciate all of them. And I'll get back to regular content now, tomorrow. But if you enjoyed it, be sure to like and follow. I post stitch tutorials and project tutorials every single day on my page. If you'd like to request something, you can leave that in the comments of any of my videos. Have a nice day!
I could be red, or I could be yellow, I could be blue, or I could be purple, I could be green or pink or black or white, I could be every color you like. I could be red, or I could be yellow, I could be blue, or I could be purple, I could be green or pink or black or white, I could be every color you like. I could be